This is huge news. Darlington Nagbe is a 5-stripe.
Bring on the hate, MLS. Just bring it on in.
We're here with a transfer special as the biggest deal in MLS history just happened. I'm AJ and this is Tanner McLeod as we get into an incredible move that sees Atlanta United acquire a player that we believe perfectly fits our system. Before we get into that big transfer though, Atlanta United announced another signing before that, and Jose Hernandez, a left back from Caracas FC, was announced. Now, this guy, we kind of spoke about him on our 5-Stripe Weekly yesterday, but he's a guy that you guys asked if he's going to replace Greg Garza. You know, I think he's seen more as USL depth, probably a starter there. What do you think, Tanner?
Yeah, I think that's probably where he's going to start off at. He's a 20-year-old. Again, we touched on a lot of it, like he said in the video yesterday. Played well for Venezuela at the U20 World Cup. Youth. He's got a lot of room to develop and grow. He could be a long-term replacement for Greg Garza. So in that sense, many of you could be right believing that. I mean, because Garza has had injury issues, and you know he's not exactly an old player, but he has played a lot, and he is susceptible to get picking up a knock every now and then.
He's got that hip injury that always occurs, and
but I mean, it depending on how he develops, and I think he'll start in USL, and if he develops well and plays well, then I have no reason to believe that he won't feature in maybe some cup games, or even start rotating once the fixture congestion comes in at the second half of the season.
Exactly.
We have to remember that if we thought this year was congested, next season sees a World Cup. So the entire second half of the season, it won't just be United, it'll be everyone. You're going to see those twice-a-week fixtures. And hopefully United goes even farther in the US Open Cup, so that's even more fixtures we have to worry about. So I think if he plays well, it provides depth, it provides youth, it provides potential, and I think he'll play some.
Right, exactly. And we need to remember that he's a 20-year-old with a lot of potential, but he's not a finished product yet. He's still developing. And so, you know, I think it's between him and Mikey Ambrose in terms of who's starting at USL and who's backing up Greg Garza. So, you know, they'll see plenty of playing time throughout the year. And so this is just a great depth signing for us that, you know, it's great to see Atlanta United, you know, just pulling the trigger so quickly in the offseason.
And it's nice because they're going for players who have potential. And I hate that word sometimes because it might never pan out, but they're not going for older, solid players for depth. They're going for young players who they believe are going to be successful and grow. And I think that's an impressive thing for a club to do because it shows that they're willing to take risks. But that's because they trust their scouting system, they trust their coaches. So, you know, he blends in almost like some of our academy prospects. He's a young guy who hopefully we'll see more of in the future.
And on to our brand new number 6, Darlington Nagbe. We just found out about the rumor on Monday, and today's Wednesday, and he's already signed and announced. Just Atlanta United, they've just never ceased to amaze us. It's crazy.
Yeah, I hope they never stop amazing us either. It's fantastic. I mean, we talked about it again yesterday, and I showed how excited I was then at the even thought that Darlington Nagbe would be a 5-stripe. And today, you know, I see the news. I immediately call my dad, even though I'm at work. I'm like, Dad, we've just signed Darlington Nagbe. He was just like, he couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm so excited about what a player like this brings to our team already. And honestly, I can't say enough about how highly I rate this player. I mean, he is the perfect box-to-box midfielder for a Tata Martino side. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, and you know, let's get into the numbers and what we actually acquire in this deal and what we gave up. So we acquire Darlington Nagbe and Gambenga Arakoyo from Portland Timbers in exchange for $650,000 in general allocation money, or GAM, in 2018, and another $100,000 in 2019, and $300,000 in targeted allocation money, and a 2018 international roster spot. So for the targeted allocation money, for us to only give up $300,000, that's the amazing part. You know, that's very, very little in the grand scheme of things to give up for a caliber of player like this.
I mean, TAM is really the gold of MLS. For a lot of people, you have the 3 designated players. Well, TAM is what you can use to buy down players' contracts to where they're not a designated player. So I think United need that TAM in order to buy down Nagbe to not be a designated player, or possibly even Jalba if United go on and sign Barco. So that's the money that's really important. That's the money you want to hold on to, you don't want to trade. GAM is money that you can just use to buy down other players' contracts to where it doesn't count as much towards your salary. So to only give up some GAM and very little TAM, That's incredible to me.
Right.
I think it's a
Now,
fantastic deal.
There are some incentives if he wins MLS Cup with us, if he wins the MVP, then he gets incentive-based compensation, and so does Portland Timbers. But that is up to $500,000 and $600,000 in TAM. So still, over the life of it, that's really nothing.
I mean, I guess what it comes down to is, are you willing to trade, that money for possible trophies and league titles?
Yeah.
To which my case is absolutely.
Yes, every time.
Because, I mean, farther down the line, you might be looking to replace some of those older players who currently are on bigger contracts and wages right now with some of our academy players.
Right.
And in a couple years, that might not even be an issue because academy players count less towards your salary cap as well. So I think it's a fantastic deal. I think we should hopefully expect to be paying out those incentives because I think is a fantastic player who can really be a boss to run the midfield. Almiron runs the attack, but we needed a player who could run the midfield and control a game.
Exactly.
And I think that's what Nagbe brings.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you ultimately see him fitting in this squad? Is it as a number 8? Is it as a winger, as he's played mostly at Portland Timbers?
I think he's going to be more of a central midfield player for Atlanta United. He is definitely a box-to-box type player. He covers a lot of ground. He has every pass you can imagine in his locker. I mean, he can just spring a play with just a little flick, and it's fantastic. And he can do it from deep lying in midfield. And so I think that's where he fits. I think Portland, they might not have had the attacking talent that United has, which is why he was playing as the attacking left midfielder, kind of in the Emil Assad role. You bring him back a little farther to where he doesn't have to worry necessarily about getting into the box. He worries about playing the players into the box, to which he is a phenomenal player at doing so.
He makes the pass before the assist, so the pre-assist, if you will, and which is good. MLS counts those those assist numbers, and so he'll still get that boost in his confidence when he sees his stat sheet, if you will.
I think the biggest thing that I think we'll see from him is that on the counterattack, how quickly he will be able to spring those plays, because Almiron won't have to drop as deep to get the ball. Almiron can stay further forward. So that means that when United win the ball in our own half, he can very quickly play that spring pass that lets loose that counterattack. So you can have Almiron, Villalba, Martinez already running at pace towards the defense, and he can play that ball over the top or play that splitting through ball that gets a player in even if he's still sitting in our own half. And that's what's just incredible about a player of his talent. And I still just can't believe that United already had an amazing offseason, and we've talked about on every show, all the signings we've talked about. I never expected this to happen. And again, it started on Monday, and today it's Wednesday, and he's a 5-strike. And that blows my mind because there could still be more to come with how this front office is doing business.
Exactly. And so tonight, the Copa Sudamericana, Ezequiel Barco is playing, and, we were going to find out after the Sudamericana final. And so, tomorrow we may find out that, Barco is signed. You never know with this front office, with this team. So
it's incredible. I think the biggest question a lot of people are going to have, though, is if we don't sign Barco, how do we line up? But right now, how do you see us lining up with him in the side? Do you see a player coming off? Who do you think he fits in front of?
Yeah, I think, so definitely he is more of a number 8 to me, a box-to-box midfielder. So, we'll show this on the screen. Essentially, we'll have that 4 in the back. We'll have Nagbe and maybe either Lorenowitz or Carmona if he's still in the squad. And, as it stands currently, Gressel would probably be out on the left, Tito on the right, and Joseph and Miguel. I think that's the best formation for what we have currently. Now, if Barco comes in, I see him more as a winger, so he would be playing probably on the left, Miggy in the hole, Tito on the right, Joseph up top. And Nagbe or Carmona and Lorenowitz. I think more of a 4-2-3-1 is my formation.
Yeah, I think what's fantastic about it is that it gives United a lot more depth in midfield, which I think was something we sorely missed last season. You could see that when Lorenowitz would have to drop back and play as a center back.
Exactly.
And I think what it does is it gives United the ability to change things up, especially against a bigger team like, say, a Toronto, an NYCFC, where they're going on the road, especially come playoff time, and they need to be solid in defense.
Right.
I think they could play a bit more of a 4-3-3, which you could see Carmona and Lerwinowicz both playing. They could play more of a defensive role, which allow Nagbe to kind of slot forward and play more of an aggressive role, but you still have a solid base of 4 people defending even when United lose the ball.
Right.
I still think you'll see the fullbacks overlap, and I think you could play Almiron and Villalba on the left or the right. They're interchangeable.
Right.
Have those guys cutting inside to create. You get your width from those fullbacks again, and I think again it still gives you a very attacking and unpredictable force when you're going forward. You can counter very quickly out of that, while still having that solid base in midfield.
Right.
And I think that's an amazing option that I hope to see Atlanta United implement, especially again in those big ties away from home. Because when we're at home, you can put that extra attacker on for that midfielder because you're at home. You know you can do that. But when you're away, sometimes you have to be a little bit more conservative.
For sure.
And I think this gives Atlanta United a lot of options to be creative with how they play their midfield.
Right. And I think that's what we saw last year, was that we didn't rotate very much, and so much of the same players were playing week in, week out, game in, game out, and definitely with that really congested month of September, that's where our fatigue, I think we probably peaked a little early, whereas if it was a regular schedule, as hopefully it is next year, we would have peaked going into the MLS playoffs instead of peaking in September and then falling off a little bit in October and then kind of sputtering into so
I think something else is interesting is it really gives you options off the bench, especially at home, because I don't think that you see, I think you see 2 of the 3 of Nagbe, Carmona, and Lerwinowicz start at home. But that gives you the option that when it gets to the 60th, 65th, 70th minute, and you need to shut things down and control the match, you can bring one of those guys on, which is a fantastic option to have. Not to mention, if United do go and sign Barco, you can bring Gressel on as an attacking option. So you can really bring on quality players off the bench that can change the game or shut down the game, which is something that a lot of teams in MLS struggle to do. And to have that experience, to have those fresh legs and that talent on the bench, that's what the best teams have when they want to win. So I think it strengthens Atlanta United even more than I could have imagined. And again, I have no idea what this front office is going to do because they've already surprised me with something. And I mean, Carlos Bocanegra, like you have over here, shows that he knew it from the beginning. They didn't say anything. They knew from the get-go this was something they wanted.
He said that this is their main target, and so Carlos Bocanegra says, Darlington was our top target in the league this offseason, and we're ecstatic to welcome him to our club. He's a perfect fit for our style of play, as he's got a dynamic ability to dribble out of trouble, maintain possession, and make passes that bring additional players into the game.
I mean, they knew it. He was their top target, which is like, if he was their top target, I thought Barco was the top target. But they had Nagbe all. I mean, it's incredible how this front office plans things. And I think we've said it multiple times how much we love that this front office has a commitment to win. But they're showing it. And as fans, I'm ecstatic. And I know it has to make opposing fans absolutely just livid. But hopefully, on the whole, if you want to be more of a pro-MLS person, this is good because Atlanta United are showing determination. And hopefully, I want us to win all the time, so obviously I don't want anyone else to be as good at it as we are. But if it can raise the total quality of the league by having more teams do this, then that's both good for us because I'm completely convinced we'll always be ahead of the curve, always staying after those players. But I mean, I just want to see the quality continue to rise, and Atlanta United are raising the bar.
So we posed a question to you: how excited are you for Nagbe to join the Five Stripes? Let us know in the comments below.
I know I am very, very excited.
So that's it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Smash a like, subscribe if you haven't. And for Tanner McLeod, I'm AJ. See you in the next video.